Is there a strategy that'll help you grow your company faster? CEO Sales Strategies is an investigative business podcast for entrepreneurial people who never stop asking questions. Highly acclaimed sales revenue growth expert Doug C. Brown interviews CEOs, business owners, and professionals who serve them to uncover and share actionable tips and methods behind their bulletproof sales strategies. Topics covered on the show include their failures, struggles, secrets, and processes that help them succeed in selling millions to billions of dollars of their products and services, all with the sole aim of helping you grow your business. If you are eager to know the most effective sales secrets from the A players of the game, then the CEO Sales Strategies podcast is certainly the place to be.
Hey everyone, this is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategies podcast. Once again, bringing you a wonderful guest. His name is Mr. James Hilton, and he has a company called M&C Saatchi Performance. So I'm going to put all the notes in the show notes section for you. Listen up with this guy. He is the real deal when it comes to building out on mobile marketing and digital marketing and understanding how the world has changed and how sales is changing and how you really, it's not even a should anymore, it's a must to actually embrace mobile marketing. I mean, over 56% of the people today are first going to their mobile phone, checking things out. And to do this the right way is important. It's not about trying to close a client completely on your mobile application for B2B. It's about opening up the initial conversations on B2C, same thing. Now, can you close them on B2C, B2B? Absolutely. It depends on what you're selling. If you're selling complex sales, this is a great intro play to go. If you're trying to move products and services in any capacity, it is a must. It's not anything but a must today. So we're going to talk a lot about working with agencies, not working with agencies. We're going to talk about how sales has shifted. We're going to talk about a bunch of things. So, let's get to the interview right now. I think you're really going to enjoy it. Mr. James Hilton, here we go. James, welcome to the CEO Sales Strategies podcast. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you very much for having me.
So to kind of give a frame for everybody, why don't you tell us what your company does? So it's M&C Saatchi Performance. And why don't you kind of lay out what you do for people?
Yeah, so what we do as a business is that we are an agency, a kind of media agency, where what we deliver is tangible results. In the days before the world was sort of digital and trackable, people would put a lot of money into media and marketing. They wouldn't know which bits were working. So every year, the marketing was seen as a drain. It was saying, well, how much we put into it, we don't really know. So in 2006, I decided to sort of like, with the whole digital explosion, is basically to launch a business which really just looked at performance marketing. So when clients of mine spend $1, they know what they want back. And it's not sort of that sort of like we're having something which is very intangible. Generally, they spend $1, they want $1.20 or $1.50, $2 back. So my business basically is about looking after clients who have a clear ROI of what they're focusing towards, and working all our efforts and all their monies of using all the technology available to us to deliver to their objectives. And most of my clients, their budgets grow with us month on month because we are delivering growth and profit for them. So it's a very sort of different way of the old-fashioned marketing agencies.
So the number one complaint I hear from people in marketing companies, CEOs, is I seem to dump a lot of money into mobile marketing, Facebook, Google, whatever platform. And I don't know how I'm getting my money back sometimes. So you really solve that whole problem. You give them the whole quantitative data on everything that's going on, because a lot of times they feel like, oh, I just spent, $30,000 on Facebook this month, and I really don't know my ROI like I'm supposed to, because I really don't know what's going on.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we do. We unravel it for brands. We go through, we look at it. I mean, the problem that people have is that when you work with Google and Facebook per se, and obviously Facebook owns Instagram, they're self-attributing networks as well. So they are sort of like spending your money and also sending you the report card after saying, this is how well we did. and you can't audit it. It's all black box, and this is how well we did. And it's very frustrating for brands. And then we feel it for brands. It's that very frustrating. It's that they feel that they have to be at the table, that it's table stakes to have advertising at the table, especially when it comes to search. But what they can't do is understand that granularity. And we specialize in the mobile first world. So when I launched the business, I launched it before Steve Jobs came out with the iPhone in 2007. And it was sort of a mobile first business. And mobile now, as we all know, is the ever-present digital channel. The mobile phone is on you at all times, and it's that connection between all digital channels. So it's particularly complicated mobile in the early days. So for us now, we're kind of now a kind of full digital agency, but we've got that experience from this very myopic, very, very chaotic industry where basically no one knew what was going on. It was so hard to track. So the solutions we developed when times were very hard are now really kind of coming, helping our clients now when things are getting a lot more simple. But again, you need sort of strong leadership to help unravel that.
So let's delve into this mobile marketing, because I believe, and you're the expert on this, so correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not a question anymore of a company that wants to grow, whether or not they should do mobile marketing. It's really more of a question now of how do I do it? Because it's here to stay and it's here to grow. Is that accurate?
For sure. And I think basically, if you go back and look at sort of digital marketing, mobile marketing, is that the mobile is always on you. The mobile has so much data attached to it. Obviously, we have location data. We can see like a lot of users signing in. It's a personal device. You never share your device. You'd never let someone sort of sit on your device and say, here, take my mobile phone for a couple of days. It doesn't work like that. It's a very personal device. So I think, basically, you have to, mobile is the first place you go. And if you look at the data, over 55% of all budgets in digital are going mobile first. Wow. So it's the first port of call where you go is on the mobile device. But what people need to realize is that mobile customers are often on the move as well. You may not get the deep dwell time. So, what you really have to do is sort of like think about mobile content as being like snackable, bite-sized content. Content which people kind of consume on the move. But also looking at the engagement of not trying to get someone to fill out, like, if it's a financial form, for example, with like 10 questions, the odds of them do it on the mobile phone may be somewhat limited. So what it is about really understanding the consumer, and that's consumer first journey planning. And if the mobile is the touch point of the first sort of engagement with the consumer, you can move that across to desktop very seamlessly, or move that across to any other channel that they want. But it's that initial engagement. The dwell time on mobile exceeds every other device out there. And that's where the consumers are. So marketing budgets are following that.
So is it only B2C or B2B as well?
It's B2B as well. I mean, we're seeing, again, it comes back to sort of the hyper targeting that you can do on a device on the mobile phone. That we can sort of look to all the different sites available to us, and basically the destinations and all the programmatic industry and the industry going generally. We can really understand the audiences. And by understanding those audiences, we engage them at the right time, and also basically the right locations. We can understand people by job title, we can understand people by seniority, we can understand on their daily commute. There's so many different ways we can use the data which digital affords us. And what mobile is doing in essence is enriching the data even further. But ultimately, the digital revolution is about understanding your customer. Understanding your consumer on a B2B and a B2C, and it's understanding their needs. And once you can do that and you sort of journey plan, the world's kind of turned into your oyster. We have clients who started with us on like $20,000, $30,000, and I'm not kidding you, they're doing like $4 or $5 million a month now, really just growing and learning. And I think basically for us, we look at our clients like acorns and oaks. We take on smaller clients. Basically, if we do believe in their businesses, because we grow them. And once the budgets are grown, that means everyone is doing well, because they're getting a positive ROI. And basically we can scale it out for them. And the more we can scale, the more global capacity you have on the sort of digital is infinite. So it's a very exciting channel.
Well, and it's what I love about this is it's really a kind of get to know you type thing. And it's easy to do if you understand it, right? It's not this, a lot of people think digital marketing or mobile marketing digitally. The people that I talk to, especially the traditionalists, like the folks who are a little bit older, right? And, we always did business on the golf course, that type of crowd, right? They think that this digital process that they've got to go through is so different than what they're trying to do on the golf course. But really what I'm hearing is the mobile marketing is kind of like the intro conversation or the intro connection point. And from there, you're growing that relationship. And then you could take it across the desktop from that point and keep growing the relationship. Maybe you still go out on the golf course, but it starts on the mobile phone now because over 55% of people are actually going there first. Is that accurate, or am I off?
No, for sure. I mean, the way you look at it, it's like if you have like a technology like Salesforce or HubSpot, it unravels all your sales, for you, and a lot of our clients are using that. But ultimately, what you can see is that it's a multi-touch point environment that we live within. Is that, consumers need to be touched in multiple different formats before they actually engage. Mobile is a very strong first port of call. That's a very, the dwell time of mobile can be like 3 hours a day, 4 hours, it's extraordinarily high. So if the consumers are there, then it's great. You can take it onto the golf course for sure, but I suppose what it comes down to is a funnel. And when you're looking at the funnel, it's like what goes in the top to the golf course, I think, is the bottom of the funnel. If you think about it, you can't take 10,000 people out to play golf every month. You haven't got enough time in the day.
Right.
But when you're looking at digital channels, we can funnel through those 10,000 people. We can put them into the hopper and we can kind of generate them down the kind of funnel. And at the end of the funnel, they're the people you can play golf with. You can close the deal on a larger deal on the golf course. But when you're looking sort of like in the mobile ecosystem, like an app first culture, it's so easy for customers to see an ad, click on an ad and download an app. It's so second nature for them to do that. And then once they've downloaded that app, then the whole revenue channel comes behind that. So it depends where your kind of cost of sale is. It depends what you kind of like where your business is specializing in. But in my experience, that digital can work for across every industry. Different cost for acquisitions. Like we work for gaming companies who have cost per acquisitions at 50 cents, and we work for financial institutions who have cost of acquisitions at over $1,000. So everyone's got a different sort of cost per acquisition, but everyone's got the same drive to deliver transparent learnings on an ROI basis. And that's what we at M&C Saatchi Performance do.
We're speaking with Mr. James Hilton of M&C Saatchi Performance. I love this conversation, James, and I'm so grateful we're having this because a lot of people are still, it's kind of like when the ATM came out. Now we're a little bit, it took 20, 30 years for people kind of adapt to think that, oh, okay, my money's not going to be eaten by this machine. And a lot of times people, when I speak to them, and these are not just, solo entrepreneurs or mom and pop companies, these are some large companies, hundreds of millions of dollars, and they're still contemplating, should I be using digital technology? I know I got to do it, but there's this reluctance that if they put this thing in, then all of a sudden it's just going to go poof, and their profitability will drop, below the level they need it to go, because they're just putting more money out than actually the money that is coming back in. What would you say to somebody who's like, okay, I know I need to do this, but should I? Right? I mean, is it a must anymore? Is it just something that is, a potential thought that I should have and then maybe investigate this down the line?
I think it's really interesting because you've got someone who's created a very successful business, and the way they've done that is through their traditional ways of marketing, and we have full respect for that. And I'm sure they do that. They understand that things have to evolve. So my advice then is like the core has to be what they're good at already. Is that digital doesn't change it; it supplements it. It doesn't have to sort of change everything that we're doing. And what I would do is I would be tasking your agency is, can digital perform as well as what I'm doing already? And if it can't, and there's no issue with supply in the way you're doing it, digital maybe not be right for you. And I think this is what it comes down to, is that we do digital, the KPI is the most important thing. The cost per acquisition is, that's what we're looking at, the customer acquisition cost. If you can get it cheaper somewhere else, great. The problem our brands who come to us is that they can't get the scale they need through their traditional channels. So we don't say apart from doing what you're doing, we say, well, let's infuse this into your marketing mix. Let's use sort of a kind of CRM solution to really help us understand what is driving what, which part of your expenditure is driving the sales, and then basically slowly fusing in. But the cost to get involved in a digital and a mobile space you're not talking about sort of millions of dollars. You know, many clients start with like, I've got $20,000, $30,000. That's what I want to invest in a month. And this is what, you know, and with that money, any decent agency should be showing you that we started on cost per acquisition here. And as we went down, as we spent more money, the cost per acquisition went down and down and down. And the reason being is that we do optimization. So we look where the money is going, and you know, we have the technology to auto move the money for where we're seeing the most traction. And that's when you can kind of easily get into like a digital like marketing strategy, because you know you're being looked after. And it's a lot of it's about clear KPIs, making sure you understand exactly what you want. Where money in marketing is lost is when people don't look at attribution. They don't know what's driving what. They don't have a clear understanding of what they're trying to define, where they see success is. So ultimately, it's flawed. And I think, you know, every agency I know now will help steer their clients to make sure that they're getting the right brief from the client to make sure that they can get the right results. Because one thing worth noting is that from an agency perspective, you know, we've got offices around the world. We've got offices in America, in Asia, in Europe. You know, we have, you know, a very large print. And one of the things, you know, I'll be completely frank with you about, every new client costs me money. It literally, if this test doesn't work, I'm out more than you're out, I can assure you. Like, basically, I've lost a lot of money because there's a huge amount of work needed to get these, you know, get new accounts live. You know, where we start to regain our money is about month 4 onwards. So we are just as committed as you are to make sure this works. If it scales, which means, let's be honest, if someone's giving me $1 and I give them 2 back, they're making double their money. And if it scales, then I can scale my fee, because basically we're getting a percentage of the uplift as well. So like, you know, we're all on the same side. And I think that's why performance agencies are such a valuable asset in the industry, is that we are so on the same side of the CEOs. You know, we wanted to succeed more than them sometimes, because we've got 4 months of losses coming our way, and we've had to get the whole team ready for a new client, and we want them to succeed. So we're all in it together. And I think as long as you get the relationship right with the agency you select, that it's joint loss and joint gain, then I think basically you're in very strong hands.
And I think this is a really great point you're bringing up, because a lot of times, you know, in the agency world that I've experienced anyways with myself or my clients, is they're like, oh yeah, I can do this. Give me a monthly retainer, give me a percentage of spend and we'll see how it goes. Right. And it's one of those things that the owner or entrepreneur, the company itself, you know, puts in tens of thousands of dollars. And then 4 months later, they're finding out this isn't working. And now the agency, not your agency, I know that based on what you just said. And so this is why I'm so like, you know, folks, those of you who are listening, you know, perk your ears up, because if you're doing something like this and you get a performance agency, they've actually got part of the, I would say, the profitability or loss tied into their performance, really, when it comes down to it. Yeah. But most agencies, James, that I've ever talked with, they won't do this. They won't even broach the idea of doing this, because, well, quite frankly, I don't think they know they can deliver, but they're taking people's money. And that's what I see happening. It's kind of like in the old days of SEO. When we had an SEO company, 70% of our clientele were already with some other client prior to, but they got burned once or twice before they actually got to the right place. And I'm kind of hearing you do the same thing. Why don't other agencies, or why don't people do that? Like, in your opinion, like what's preventing the people from actually doing this?
Well, there's a few things. I mean, like a lot of our clients, like our reputation, you know, precedes us. We work with lots of large brands and small brands alike. A lot of our clients just want full transparency, saying that we'll pay you X fee on the media, we'll give you a retainer. We want full transparency. We want everything, so we know, because there's two schools of thoughts of it. Certain clients, and I understand them, saying that we'll pay the fees, we'll pay what it, you know, if it's that X% of media or an X% of retainer, we'll pay that, but we want all the upside. So like basically, if, you know, if we give you a target of say $50 a customer, if you're going to get it for 5, we want to keep the whole 45. So, and that works very well as well. You know, so we get a lot of brands saying we want the full transparent version. Then we got other brands saying we don't want to take the risk. So then we're saying to them, well, we'll do a very small test. If the test is conclusive, then we'll take the risk for you. Because we know it's going to work. And then you often get the hybrid ones as well, where people come in saying, I want full transparency at the beginning. And then basically, as it gets larger and larger, they say, look, can you make this a fixed cost for us and take away the variable cost for us? And we say to them, we can, but obviously we're going to have to charge you a little bit more than you're paying at the moment because we've got to take the bumps in the road as well. And they're like, absolutely. I think the reality is that an agency should listen, like basically to what clients' requirements are before defining like a way to bill, a way to invoice, and a way to what type of media you need. It's a very exciting ecosystem in the digital space, and there's some really, really fantastic opportunities out there. But ultimately, it's a partnership, and it's like the relationship I have with my team. We have hundreds of people around the world. It's a partnership. Now I have to look after them, and they look after their jobs, and it's and this is how our organisation sort of works. What we can't do is basically, if any part of the value proposition takes advantage of someone else, it all breaks. So it comes down to clients and agencies. It's a partnership. Basically, we'll work with the clients as partners. We have a lot of clients who actually work out of our offices for a few days a week. Actually say, I'm in the area. Can I work out your office? Of course you can. Nothing to hide. It's a proper partnership. And I think that's what people should be looking for at agencies is embrace them into your organization once they've proven themselves. The more you can give the agency, the more understanding they have of your business, the better you'll see your results. So it is like a really defined way of working.
One of the growth strategies I teach my clients is actually find agencies and build their own internal type agency, right? Type process. Because what I love with what you guys do and agencies in general is you don't have to hire a whole new contingency of an internal staff to actually have an agency. Like if we hire your agency, we get all of your internal staff, we get all of the resources, but we don't have to create it from scratch, so to speak, right? And so it's a leverage tool, and if companies can create the leverage within, then they have, we teach them to build partnerships and build agencies, and then, sales teams through their agencies. And that's kind of an expansion mechanism that they're going after a different market altogether, because now they have agents that are out on the field actually driving business into them, HubSpot, and they do these type of things anyways. So but what I love with your agency is, and this is great, because when I was describing what the traditional, the business goes through, they get in with a traditional agency. I saw your eyes roll back, and you're like, oh my gosh, right? Because you know the game. And so that cued me in on the integrity that I already know you have. And that's one of the reasons I'm so grateful you're on this podcast. What we're really talking about, if I'm getting this accurately, is sales has shifted. We're in an ever-changing process, or as you would say over in England, process, right? We're in an ever-changing process on this whole thing. And that people really now, we have to learn how to sell in this ever-changing process, because if we don't, it's going to change without us anyway. It's already changed. I mean, from 2 years ago, now, I mean, people are working from home. Now it's regular. I remember 20 years ago, we were talking and teaching companies how to work virtually, and they were pushing back on that. They're saying, well, this isn't really going to be, my company internally won't embrace it, those type of things. Where today it's like, wow, I just got rid of all this floor space. I got, people are being productive at home, et cetera, et cetera. But we're now into an ever-changing sales mode of being able to acquire those. And I see digital as not just even a necessary step, but it is part of the process now, that a lot of decisions are made now on the marketing side before it ever even gets to the sales channel. Are you experiencing that as well with your clients?
Yeah, no, I think what we're finding is that you're completely right. Things have changed. The last 2 years have been extraordinary for every reason out there. And where we've come out of it, let's be honest now, that we all use Zoom. In the old days, it was like, can you hear me? Can you see this? I'm sharing it. We now take it for granted that people can see us and see what we're sharing. And also in the old days, we would travel the world just to be with each other. We'd keep moving from town to town to saying, like, I need to sell. I need to go up to Chicago. Then I'm going to Seattle, all this sort of world. And what it did, it slowed everything down. And it's not viable anymore. It's not viable because people aren't all in the same location. So we are, if we are engaging people through the final engagement, can be on a Zoom, on a conference call, or Teams, and everything, and all the other technologies that we have to us, is people are used to the whole digital experience now. And consumer mindsets have changed. People aren't in the office anymore. I know like there's a whole debate of why not and could they, and the reality is they're not. There's a huge like drain on people. We have no talent. There's a massive talent drought globally. I hear it from all my officers. Their biggest challenge is talent. There's a massive talent drought globally. So with that in consideration, we're now working with talent which are not based out of offices because it suits them. They can be different parts of the country. We have people all across America now in all different states working for us, basically out of our, not in our offices, but for an office. So things have all changed. Knowing that has happened to us, that has to happen to to your customers as well. Your prospects are not in the office anymore. They're not picking up the phone like they used to. They're not at these sort of networking events, which they used to be. Whether that's right or wrong isn't really the consideration for us because we're not lawmakers. What we are is we're marketeers. And what we have to do is learn to adapt to the situation that we work within. And COVID has created a tremendous amount of opportunity for us, which is digital first, digital native. And if you think about it, if you've got like a use of time, if you look at hardcore sales, the more people you hit, the more likely is you're going to get a bite. Like basically with digital, you can be fishing in unlimited places all at the same time. You're not going to have to fish in one place at a time. Ultimately, that's what makes the industry so exciting. But there's obviously challenges with it and understanding it. But there's plenty of people out there who now do and who can take, brands and lead them by the hand through this sort of change.
Can we expand upon fishing unlimited places at one time? Because a light bulb went off in my head. Because we all think we have this focused market. Well, most of us do. We think we have these focused markets. But what I just heard is I can fish in unlimited ponds and test unlimited ponds for a very low test fee to find out, like in the old days, we used to do focus groups, right, with companies or whatever. And quite frankly, I don't think most focus groups are all that accurate anyways, but that's my opinion on it. But now I can test in certain ponds. I can be fishing in different places is what I heard.
Yeah.
And getting intelligence. How does that work? Because I imagine like there's people listening to this going, whoa, wait a minute. I could do that. How? So
I'll tell you our hidden secret of how when we launched a digital first, that when you think about digital first, a lot of them are, like there's no back office required. It's an app. It's an in-app purchase. It's all on the app store. So basically the content's all on the app store. Like it's all in an app. What we do is we often, and we do this many, many times, we launch it first in Australia. Because in Australia, it's English speaking. So it's got 25 million people. It's got the same sort of demographic as like basically we can pick out in other developed nations. So we'll test it in Australia. We'll see if it works. So we won't have to do the big budgets because we can hit the audience. If you think about America, getting up to 400 million people, in Australia, it's 25 million people. So the audience that we're hitting, we can hit a really high penetration of the right audience, but not that much money. Then what we do is we model it and we see what's working. What was the action? How much per action was there? How much was per download? How much was a sale? What was the time from download to sale? We can model everything and see how it works. If the numbers are strong enough, we then say, right, now we can turn on other markets. And then we can turn on sort of Antipodean markets. We can go, right, let's get into Canada, let's get into America, let's get into the UK. And then also what we can do is we can target people who have set English as a default language on their phones. So we can go globally. So if you're going to go to a country where basically like they don't speak English, like Italy, for example, we say, fine, we'll just target people who've got English set as their native language in Italy. And then that gets all the English people covered. And then we start rolling around and then we start saying to the clients, right, let's do a quick translation. Let's go to Spanish. Let's get Spanish, then we can get South America covered. We just rolling because you don't need an agency in every country. You don't, like basically, working in these channels, basically, like we have clients, we represent in 40 markets. We don't do it each market. We have someone there. So if you think about the opportunities, that's for digital first. But if you're looking at like lead creation, we can do the same. It's like digital is like boundaryless, and that's what makes it so fascinating. That's what makes the businesses so exciting, because we've had businesses who started in one market and now are truly global, and that's because the marketing channel has enabled them to do that. because the rest of it can slot in. But the marketing channel has always been the bugbear for everyone. I can't get an agency in every country. I can't create a brand in every country. We're saying to them, you don't need any of those. We can create a kind of brand for you through performance advertising. So we're creating a brand, but we're still getting a positive ROI. So, and that's where it gets really exciting. And then, to anyone out there who's like kind of sitting on the fence about it, the way to look at digital is excitement. And it's not just Generation Z. It's not just these young millennials. It's every part of the ecosystem now is on this space. And it's like, with the right attention, we can look at any business and really identify there's an opportunity. And if there is, what you've got the ability to do is when you get it right, you can go 5x, 10x, 15x. You can just keep going up. And that's where it gets super exciting.
That's brilliant, because because I'm sure there's a lot of people that are listening to this going, wait a minute, I can actually target by language. Like, so if we're going to go to Italy and let's say whatever percent of the population speaks Italian solo, I can actually just target the people who have English set on their phones, and now I can hit them. Yeah. Or vice versa. I just want to hit people who speak Italian or whatever the language might be. That is absolutely brilliant, because I know people don't think like this, because it's unless they're in your world, they're not going to be able to think like this because they're not in your world, right? It's kind of like
that's what we unravel. And another thing which I think is fascinating, which was a real mind-blowing thing for myself, is sort of like, it's been led by Meta, which is Facebook, which is the lookalike targeting. So we have the ability to basically, we work with our clients and we say to them, look, how many customers do you have? They may say, I've got 500. They may say, I've got 50,000. Doesn't make any difference. Give us the database of the clients that you have. We'll upload them. We'll do all the work, and we'll get it uploaded. And what this technology will do, it will upload it to like Meta, and it will say, this is our audience. These customers we don't want to advertise to because they're already our audience. But what is the common traits in these audiences? Go and get me an audience similar to this. And the technology then will go through all of your, like, say it's 5,000, go through all the 5,000 and say, of those 5,000, the common thread of all of them was this. And then the algorithm will immediately go and take it off, and we will control the creative and everything else to go and get that lookalike audience. And you get the most fascinating things. So when we launched, like we're doing a book launch, 50 Shades of Grey, which everyone likes to hear about that one. So when we started looking at the audience and the profiling and things such as that, we found out, and like, I'm not going to go through the reasoning of it, but we found out that the common thing is that lots of the females, it was a female-dominated book, a lot of them rode horses. They like the equestrian side of life. That there's a whole million reasons why that could be. But that insight was fascinating to us, because we were like, right, now we know a lot more. So then we were basically going back to the brand owners and saying, look, our data is showing that you've got like a 9x going to be into equestrian. So when you're doing future marketing, hit that audience. That's where your audience is. So the data will define everything for you. You can actually get the DNA profiling from the data. And that's really fascinating. So if people are worried about getting into digital, if you've already got just some email addresses, digital will basically work its kind of like cotton socks off to use that data to find you the next audience for you, which will be the same people, just more of them. It's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. And that's just a tip of the iceberg of what we're doing for some of our clients.
And I imagine people here, because we have authors here that are going, really? I can do this with a book launch?
Yeah.
Right. And it's, so now if we know they're equestrians, now we target those type of people who are equestrian
interest groups.
Yeah.
Anything. Yeah, interest groups, magazines. You want to go off, you want to go offline with it, go to the magazines. You want to do some like live activation, go and do some sponsorship of the events. It sets the whole thing up for you. And we know for a fact, because this isn't a probabilistic data, this is factual data. And it's deterministic data, and that's the big difference. I think where I'd like to take someone's people's views is that the problem is there's a big change happened recently with Apple. So Apple, about sort of probably just over a year ago now, they changed their tracking. I will be cynical. Apple tried to get into advertising. They bought a company called Quattro Wireless. It wasn't very good. No one really used it, and they got upset. Then they did their own bit of advertising, their keyword stuff in their app store and stuff, which is all right, but not big enough. So they weren't winning the advertising war. So what they've done now is gone and said, right, we're going to be on the side of the customer. We're going to turn it all off. And they've literally flicked a switch when it comes to privacy. So we used to be able to track people for life. It was frightening how much we could get. Basically, it was all compliant. Everything we were doing is compliant, obviously. Apple have now said, right, we're now restricting this massively. So they've turned the dial on it. And that, I think, is one of the reasons that we see Netflix recently, like, their share price took a tumble. Yes, basically they've lost customers. The reason they lost customers is they can't acquire them as easy as they used to. It was a bit easier than it was. So now it's harder to acquire customers because we're moving slowly now to more like probabilistic opposed to deterministic. We're moving slowly that way. And at the scale Netflix were working, they were working on razor thin margins. Basically sort of like they had it down to a cent how much they would acquire customers for. Apple have changed the ecosystem. So then what you saw is that everyone piled all their money into Android, which is Google's ecosystem. So everyone said, you know what, if Apple are going to make it funky, let's just work with Android. So all the clients, they all split over saying we're going to do Android only. And now Google are saying next year, they're going to change the rules as well to make it a little bit more protective. I'd be surprised at them doing that because Google are, let's be honest, they love data. The whole business is revolved about them using data. So it'll be interesting how they change it. So I suppose, the learning from this, the insight from this is that if you're not doing anything digital, do it now, because we've got so much open data still available to us through the learning. If we can learn it once through Android, once you've learned it, you've got the map forever. And that's what we say to our clients. We've proven this out again and again and again. We've done very similar advertising for many, many years. And here's all the data. So as the data is getting switched off in increments, it's not the end of the world because we proved it all when it was live. And I would just say is that please to everyone, it's like now is the time to give it a go. If you haven't, just to get the data, put it in your R&D, put it in your testing budget, put it wherever you want. But if you don't have that data, it's going to be harder and harder as the years roll by.
I love your enthusiasm for this because, I do a lot of interviews and certain people you could just tell like they live for what they're doing. It like lights them up. And you're one of those guys, and I really appreciate that. And I think your message is very, very sound. Do it now, because if you don't do it now, a year from now, it could be different. Right. And it will be different, and no matter what, because technology moves on. But the reality is also, I think it's a great message because sales has changed. If we're not embracing the new in another year, you're going to be behind. You're already behind now. Right. That type of thing. James, if people are like, oh my gosh, you know what, I got to talk to this guy, or I got to get a hold of this company, how do they do so? What would be the proper path?
Yeah. My personal email address is james@mcsaatchi, SAATCHI.com. And just ping me an email. I will deal with it. I will get, because obviously we've got locales around the world and stuff such as that. But at the end of the day is that, or just go to, mcsaatchiperformance.com and have a look at our content, our website. That ultimately it's like, I can guarantee everyone there is opportunity out there. I guarantee you. I've yet to meet a brand who doesn't work for. It may be more expensive than you thought, as in my cost of acquisition isn't as cheap as I wanted it to be. That happens, basically. But ultimately, we can always find customers, we can always find opportunity, and we can always create learning. And I think basically in this exciting time, basically times are going to get hard now. If you think about what's going on, we've got inflationary pressures coming through the roof. Times are going to get hard. The cost of living, the living squeeze, everything's going to get harder. So, if you want to get out there wider and more efficiently, digital is the way to do it. So I would say this is a recession-proof way of doing it. We find that in recessionary times, our business gets even brisker. This is a very recessionary-proof way of doing it because it's ROI. You're not going to give me $50,000 next month if I didn't give you your $75,000 back. That's how people look at it. So it's like, and we can help model the lifetime value. We can help model all of it. But ultimately, it all starts with basically just that the inquisitive, CEO. And I'm so pleased to report that the majority, we work with some vast companies and also some just mum and pop shops virtually. But when you've got the good ambition and you have an infinite way of dealing with your product, basically we can sell. We just can't sell enough. We've got the ability to distribute globally. We just don't have that global ability to sell. That's when it's exciting. And I would just encourage everyone to give it a go. And if just do if you don't want to go through an agency, just do it yourselves. Go into Google, buy some keywords, go into Facebook, go into Instagram, just give it a little test. Just make sure you track everything. I guarantee you'll prove it does work. And then come to MC Saatchi, mcsatchiperformance.com, reach out, and then we'll scale it for you. Whichever way works best for your audience.
James, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate that. I know everybody else will, and I know people are going to be responding in going, question, question, question. So we'll put all of your information in the show notes. So folks, you can just reach out very, very easily. I do recommend that you actually reach out to James, even if it's you have a question and you have this inquiry of curiosity about, will this work for my company? As he said, you can go do it yourself in the beginning and try it out. My experience with that, James, is they're better off actually contacting a guy just like you who cares and has the expertise. At least then you can point them in the right path, or you might even be able to help them. And it might be much more cost effective than they figure in the beginning. So I recommend they reach out to you.
No, I agree. And I think what I'm trying to do is just to make sure is that my experience, I worked in the internet from the beginning. I was in the internet in 96, 97, like basically when it was embryonic. Then I got into before Steve Jobs and the iPhone. I just don't want people not to do it. So like basically whichever way they feel most comfortable in, I totally advise someone to go someone who understands how to make this work. Because the thing about digital, as it's ever present, as it's enormous, your budgets can go in seconds if you don't know what you're doing. So I certainly go someone who makes it work. But the reality is the main thing is they must do it. If you have distrust for agencies, fine, go and do it. I can assure you the agency is the best way to do it. But ultimately, the excitement, the opportunity is out there for all of them. And that's for me. I used to be sort of like on marketing side. I have been on brand side. I've done both sides of the equation. And basically, having seen it from both sides, all I want to implore, I will sell the digital economy opposed to my agency first, because I know that basically this economy is growing to an unprecedented rate, and there's so much more to come. We are still embryonic, and there's so much more to come. And basically, I look forward to kind of next year we'll do the same thing. We can talk about what's going on in the industry this time next year. And I know it will be fascinating. Excellent.
James, thanks for being here. Appreciate you being on the CEO Sales Strategies podcast. Folks, we'll put all the show notes in there for you. Reach out to James and give it a go. And as you said, do it now.
Thank you,
James,
very much.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right. So here is the really cool thing to understand. As I said in the beginning of this, it's not a consideration anymore. It's a do it now thing. Because here's the thing. As he said, I loved what he said about Apple, changing the rules and cutting back on the available information, and that Google's thinking about doing that as well. So if you've got a year's play before this happens, get in now, because the more you understand about lookalike audiences, the more you understand about the way to do this the right way, you'll understand that it's not a big risk when you do understand how to do it the right way. It's only a big risk when you don't know how to do it the right way. And what you're doing is you're just pumping money into it. And believe me, Facebook, Google, Instagram, you name the platform, even LinkedIn, they all love, I would say, a bit of ignorance, because you just keep pumping money in and it's not working for you, or it's working, but not optimally. So you really want to make sure this is optimally working. So I hope you got a lot of value. I trust you did out of this particular podcast. If you love this podcast, which I hope you do as well, please go up and give it a 5-star review and tell other people about this. If you have any questions or you want to hear a particular topic, reach out to me at Doug Brown 1234. That's my LinkedIn profile, or Doug at ceosalesstrategies.com, and let me know what you would prefer as a topic. We'll source that talent and get you exactly what you're looking for. And as of always, if you want help and are looking for help in building your business, creating A-player teams, hiring, managing, retaining top sales talent, or just getting yourself or your team into the top 1% of sales globally in your industry, reach out to me. I'll be happy to help you. Until next time, this is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategies podcast. Go out and sell something, sell a lot of it, and sell it profitably, and make a ton of money and help others change their lives. To your success.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the CEO Sales Strategies Podcast. What is something that you learned that you could act on today? Don't forget to schedule it now, or it may never get forward momentum. If you find our content valuable, please leave a favorable review and let us know what you liked. Please also share this with others if the content will help them. For our show notes, other episodes, and more interesting content and resources, please visit ceosalesstrategiespodcast.com. See you soon, and to your continued success,